What's up, guys? It's Ace Coleman, and today I have Chris Hacker on. Chris is from Van Buren, Arkansas.
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool. And he shoots 3D indoor archery, and he's actually a property broker as well. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man, I've been shooting professional archery, I guess, since 2005. It was my rookie year. Started off with the Hoyt that year and, shooting a Hoyt now. I'm an avid bow hunter. I've been hunting since I was a kid. Basically had a bow in my hand, I think, since I was about 4. I can remember my parents bought me my first bow when I was a little kid. Got a picture of me, that little red bear, pulled back. And I was flinging arrows there for several years before I had any clue to what I was actually doing. Grew up here in Van Buren, graduated Van Buren High School and shot archery through high school. That's when I got introduced to, back then it was the Cabela's, 3D circuit was the first national tournaments that I had shot. And then got introduced to ASA there in the year 2000. And the rest is kind of history on that front. We've got a wife, 2 kids, one daughter in nursing school, one daughter in, second grade. My wife, she's, into archery, but more into bow hunting than she is, shooting a bow. She would if she had more time, probably. But when you have kids, man, that takes up a lot of time. I also
Absolutely.
work as a manager, here in Fort Smith at one of the bigger sporting goods stores, Jelco Outdoors, big Hoyt dealer, big Matthews dealer, kind of full line, sporting goods, and then also working with Mossy Oak Properties, turning real estate and building that business, as well as shooting professional archery. So plate's plenty full.
Yeah. So, um, who were some of your mentors when you first got into archery?
And when I first got into archery, I'd give credit or to my dad for one for introducing me into it. He's the one that got me into it years ago for bow hunting, and then we stumbled upon the local archery shop over here in Van Buren back around 96 or 97, a place called Turkey Creek Outfitters. They had a 20-yard indoor range, and that's kind of where I got introduced into, compound target archery at that point. The owner there, David Cowden, I'd give him a lot of credit probably for getting me going in the right direction in archery. Just mainly because he had the shop and he had leagues and he kind of steered me in the right direction. Also connected there with Nathan Brooks, who wound up becoming a pretty good friend of mine. Obviously, he shoots professional archery. At that point, I think he was shooting semi-pro and working his way up to become a pro. So we kind of got connected, and he kind of helped me along the way there as well. Um, there were several different people, I could probably talk about through there that helped get me going. But my dad was funding it, my mom and dad, funding the bows, and my dad took me to so many local archery tournaments. I think the first year that I had got introduced to 3D archery, if I remember correctly, I think we shot around 45 local 3D tournaments at spring and summer. So if that tells you anything, like we were, sometimes 3 a weekend if we could fit it in. It was for sure every Saturday, every Sunday once that archery bug hit me. So biggest mentor would be my dad. When it comes to archery, and he back then he shot traditional archery, so he kind of just got a recurve so he could afford to keep me in bows and arrows and keep me going. And I guess now the tables have kind of turned. I keep him in bows and arrows, and where he can continue to bow hunt.
That's awesome, man. 45 in a summer. That's insane.
Yeah, man, I was eat up with it back then. And I'd get out of school, and by 4 o'clock I was at the archery shop shooting my bow. And shoot until like 9 o'clock at night every evening. That's kind of where I probably built the foundation, for shooting in general, just how much time I spent behind a bow at a young age, right there, take 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. Just loved everything about archery. I played basketball when I was younger, team sports, but it was just something about competitive archery that, ignited a fire in me, and, it stuck with me basically my whole life.
Yeah, for sure. So, what's the significant challenge that you faced transitioning from, just kind of like getting into it and into like the professional ranks of stuff?
Oh, a significant challenge for me would have been something I faced early on was, target panic and really not having any idea what target panic was. When I first started shooting, I didn't use a peep sight. I had a kisser button and I had a single pin on my sight. And if the pin went across the dot, I would just punch the trigger and let it, eat. And obviously that's not the way you need to shoot. And that was a challenge, especially there as a young adult coming up, learning how to shoot a shot properly and getting through that. That was one significant challenge that I had. Obviously, with just as an archer, I think all of us have probably battled that stuff from time to time, and even throughout my professional career, I've battled issues like that, shot anticipation, even shooting a hinge. For me, if I start anticipating my shot with my hinge, you might actually see me shooting a thumb trigger or something. I'll change it up for a little while just to reset the brain, reset what I've got going on. You know, Eventually I'll transition back to the hinge and be just fine. Um, as far as probably significant for me in professional archery, early on, I would say it was probably, financial. It's because it's expensive to go shoot archery tournaments. I think my rookie year, I made it to 6 tournaments. Obviously with no sponsors, no monetary sponsors anyhow. So that was challenging. It took a couple of years to overcome that, and then once I started getting sponsors and getting the support, behind me, my career kind of took off and I got going. But it can be a financial strain on a rookie or a newcomer into the sport, trying to trying to advance and find that success.
Yeah, for sure. So with target panic, if someone has a little bit of TP, what would you tell them to do?
And I would probably see what they are actually battling because I guess there's so many different versions of that. Are they just punching the trigger? Are they locking up low? Just kind of see what's going on with their shot process. If they're locking up low, I'd probably tell them to work on aiming drills. Maybe put a back tension in their hands that won't even fire. Just something they can just kind of work through movement, um, and just aim. Just hold the bow and aim. Make sure you can get the pin in the bullseye and let your mind get used to your pin being in the middle, floating over the dot. Um, Once your mind gets comfortable and accepts that, then it comes a lot easier to execute that shot while you're aiming and actually going to fire that arrow. If they're punching the trigger, a couple different things, obviously put them in a hinge, kind of teach them how to work through it. Set their trigger where it's stiff, to where that maybe they can't punch the trigger. Um, they can wrap their finger up on it, squeeze, kind of pull through it. You know, Today you see a lot of people shooting, I guess a punch style shot. So I'm not saying that it can't be done, but you got to be able to aim the bow. That's something, Gillingham, he punches, been successful throughout his whole career, but he aims that bow before he punches it. Kyle Douglas, he aims his bow before he shoots that command shot. And I don't know if you shoot command, I can't remember if you do or not, but I know there's a
Yeah, I
lot of these
don't.
younger guys are coming up shooting that command style shot. And man, they have a lot of success with it. Shoot, look at what Jimmy Lutz has done and punching and man, what he does on the back end, sometimes you're like, how did that hit the middle? But he's holding that bow really still. He's aiming that bow before he decides to execute that shot. And that's probably one of the more important parts of shooting a bow is how well you can aim it.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with that because if the pin's not in the middle and you punch it, you're not going to obviously hit the middle. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, as far as the financial stress, um, let's say someone is going to tournaments and they don't have like a monetary sponsor yet. What advice would you give them to basically just show up for that?
So what I started to do is I started contacting local businesses and reaching out to see, hey, I'm shooting archery professionally. This is how much it costs per event for me to get there. Would you be willing to sponsor me, say, for one tournament? And I was able to pick up, a few sponsors that way. Locally, that really helped me out. That funded a few tournaments. I could afford to go to a few on my own. Um, I got to where, the owner of Jelco Outdoors sponsored me there for a few years. He helped me pick up my entry fees to get me going. So don't be afraid to reach out to local businesses to see if they can help. A lot of times, they'd be willing to help you out. You could do some fundraisers or anything to kind of generate, a little bit of extra cash to get you going. And then, if you start having success, the sponsors, most of the time they'll come to you.
Very nice. So, tell us a little bit about your 2023 season.
2023 season. So, man, I started off making the shoot off at Lancaster. I think I was seated in the seventh position going into that. If I remember correctly, sixth or seventh position. They take the top eight. Shot really well. Through qualifying, I shot 654. Had a couple of arrows that got away, but they stayed in the Big Ten anyhow. So I was very happy with that performance. Going the next day, from qualifying, you go into head-to-head matches, and I had a pretty tough bracket. I had Nick Cappers right out of the gate. He'd won Lancaster. I think we tied. I think we both dropped one, and I won the closest to center shoot off there. And then my next up was Mike Schlosser. So, you got him. It's always going to be a challenge. You feel like you can't miss. And I had dropped one early. And then we go all the way down. Mikey missed his last arrow. So we had to go to closest to center there. And, I bested Mikey on that one closest to center. And then I had Brandon Reyes, for my last match to make it into the finals. And luckily shot really well there, those few ends and won that match, made it to the finals. And so that was the start of the season. I go out to Vegas. I shoot a 899. I missed one on the first day. And I was pounding two right out of the gate, man. I was clean. I think through 5 or 6 ends, hadn't dropped an X. And then I missed one. And then I think it was the next end. I fired one a little bit high. And looking back, kind of analyzing that, it lost a little bit of tension on the back end and hit right at the top. If I'd have broke dead center, I think it would have caught, but I broke kind of top side of the X, top of the 10 ring, and just barely missed it. So 899 at Vegas wasn't bad. And then, man, 3D was a struggle for me their first few tournaments. Just couldn't get anything rolling. It wasn't like I was shooting bad or judging bad, just wasn't able to put the scores together that, you need in the open pro division to make the shoot offs. So I was battling my Stratos 36, just aiming wise, just couldn't get it to, fit me the way that I felt like I needed it to. It was mainly just a comfort thing. And I think in Louisiana, ASA Louisiana, I struggled that weekend, shot 2 or 4 up. Didn't shoot bad, like stayed all around the 12 ring, just couldn't catch the rings. So that Sunday when I got home, I had a 40 here and I had a SVX conversion kit to throw on it from the HVT. Set that thing up, and man, instantly it just fit like a glove. And come out here in the backyard, shoot it, and it just aims like a dream. Group awesome. So that's the bow I ran the rest of the year. I think the next tournament was the first leg of the IBO. Made the shoot off there, finished fifth with it, and then moved on to ASA Kentucky. Shot 2 solid rounds there. I think I went in the shoot off, sitting in third. Came out of that one in second place with that 40. So 2 tournaments in, I've got a fifth and a second. And then second leg of the IBO, get up there. I did crack a limb up there, but I'd like to go and shoot that bow anyhow. It had just a little feather on it. And man, still made the shoot off up there. So, the 40 was rolling for me. I think I finished fifth in that one. ASA Illinois, we started off first day. I think I shot 10 up. I was sitting seventh or eighth place, sitting in a really good position to make a run. And the second day, we were 5 or 6 targets in. I hadn't hit a 12 ring. So, well, it's time to get with it. I need to be aggressive here. Made a very bad decision on a lynx that was very 12able, but man, I shot it for a light number and aimed at the lower and shot a stinking 5, just that far underneath the 12. So that kind of knocked me out of it. Got pretty aggressive after that. Just never could get back into it. Then I took same bow to the third leg of the IBO. Finished third place there. Had a really good round for that tournament. I think I finished fourth for the Triple Crown. ASA Classic, man, that was just a when are we going to shoot tournament? You remember how it was.
Oh man.
Sat around in an Airbnb like all day, wondering if we're ever going to shoot. I did make a
Yeah.
change for that tournament. I shot 23s out there, instead of 25s. 25 is pretty much what I'd been shooting all season. And shot good the first day, shot 10 up, had myself in contention, I think, in the second group. Shooting good the second day. Uh, got down to a really close Blesbach, 20. I thought it was 25 yards. Apparently, it was 27 yards. I shot at the lower with that number and shot an 8. And I remember telling my group, I said, that 8 may haunt me by the end of the day. And we get going down through there, I pick up a few 12s, find myself knocking on the leaderboard to get back in the shoot off. And I think I had 3 targets left. And I was like, okay, I got to hit all 3 of them to have a chance. And 12 the first one. The second one was an arrow call. I mean, it was so close. The group called it out. Looking at it, I agree with them. It was just barely out. And then I 12 the last target, and I think I missed the shoot off by 4 points. So you look back on that, and that 8 on the Blesbach wound up costing me the shoot off. And really the first day too on that tournament, I shot an 8, really 2 8s with the right yardage.
Mm.
And that hurts, man. You can't give up points when
No.
especially when you're judging yardage.
Yeah.
You can't give up. You can't give up points knowing how far targets are when you shoot them with the right yardage. You got to stay clean on that.
Yeah. I feel that. Personally, I think I was sixth at the classic, just out.
Mm,
And I
I've
wasn't
been
like
there
the
a lot.
second day. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. But yeah, it sucks, but it just goes to show you just gotta learn something from it and um just make sure you're prepared to make the shoot off, I guess, from the get
Yeah,
go. So yeah.
oh,
Anyway,
absolutely. And that's something I try to learn something from every tournament, even if it's a failure or a successful tournament. You have to learn how to improve from that. And sometimes being that first man out, man, you can go back and you'll analyze every shot and you'll know where it cost you making that shoot off.
yeah. I mean every single shot, even if it was like a 10 or something, you could learn from that. So and that could ultimately cause you to have better performance at your next competition. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Just
So
over the years judging the yardage, man, that's one thing, not to get off topic or anything, but I've learned from notes, taking notes, certain targets just straight up fool me about the same all the time.
the blessed
I've
buck,
learned
man.
from
I
that
mean
over
that
the
thing is
years.
huge.
Yeah. You know what? And
Yeah.
I'm surprised that I shot him low because normally I overjudge that target, judging yardage, and I shoot him high a bunch. So that kind of surprised me when I shot an 8 low on him that day. But, just over the years, talking about stuff that you learn, from tournaments and just practice and notes is like for me, the javelina. I have to add 3 yards to that target every time I shoot it. It doesn't matter. Only time I don't add 3 yards is if I'm shooting him for 50. But if he looks 45, I better shoot him for 48. And 9 times out of 10, I do that, add 3 yards, aim at the lower, I'll hit the lower, hit right behind the pin. It's just a
Scary.
perception thing with that target. I'm not sure why I see it that way, you know, but I add 3 yards and I'll be there every time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so small. Like I feel like I haven't judged much. Like I have a
Yeah.
little bit like just at local stuff and it's freaking difficult. But like would you say that the ground, like how high the target is, has anything to do with how you judge it, like and how much ground you do see?
Yeah, I feel like how much ground you do see has a big effect on that. Because if you see a lot of ground going to a target, automatically in your mind, you're thinking it's farther than what it actually is. I mainly go off target size. I've got all the targets and try to go mainly off target size and that perception of each target. But I'll study a whole lane. I look at the trees, I look at the ground, kind of analyze the whole lane and break it down to come up with the yardage to shoot it for. Most of the time, though, I shoot it for my first look. If I look down there and think, he's 47 yards, 9 times out of 10, I set my sight on 41, unless there's just something that's tricking me. And say maybe I'm the third shooter in the group and both guys have hit it low. Obviously maybe I'm missing something. So then I'll kind of reanalyze it or, maybe give it an extra yard just to be on the safe side and not make a mistake. And a lot of times just adding that extra yard keeps you in the 10 ring.
Wow. So if someone is, let's say they're in like one of the open classes, or the judging classes rather, and they're having problems with judging yardage, and let's say they have a few targets, like maybe 2 to 5 targets. What advice would you give them on like increasing their judging game? Like, would you just tell them to get more targets, or just get really good at the targets they own?
I mean, you can do a lot with 5 targets. Obviously, get really good with those targets, but move them around a bunch. Change it up. If you have a little bit of land that you can move them around. You know, move them around a bunch, different settings, different lighting situations, and just practice as much as you can. That's kind of how I got started. Back in 2016, is I think I bought 7 or 8 targets, and that's all I had. I put them out on my wife's family's land, and I just moved them around. I just practiced on those targets because you can learn a lot just from that. And then, if that's all the targets that you have on other targets, just try to minimize your mistakes and the open division. Same thing in known, but obviously in open, we're not having to hit near as many rings as you guys do. But don't make any mistakes. Don't give up points. Just learn course management off of those 5, 6 targets that you have to practice on.
Yeah. So, um, what's your worst targets?
Javelina and Wolverine, I would say, would be my worst targets. And ASA, now you go over to the IBO, Javelina can still be a nightmare. I'll still do the judge, add 3 there. But that stinking alligator, man, he's been a thorn in my side. I think I've about got him figured out now. But man, over the years, he looks 44 yards to me all the time. Like, I don't know why. We rarely ever shoot him under 40, but I've shot him for 44 yards. I don't know how many tournaments and shot a 5 low on him
Yeah,
several times. So just always kind of underjudge him. And it's hard to put 50 yards on an alligator when you're shooting at something that's that low to the ground, and it's not a very tall target at all. You could miss it real easy, and
for sure.
it's deceptive.
Can imagine, man. So it sounds like the targets that are small or just super close to the ground, you seem to underjudge
I
them.
seem to I seem to underjudge those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you just add three on the Wolverine too?
Most of the time I'll add 2 to the Wolverine.
Two. Okay.
Just kind of standard, unless with him, I don't struggle too bad with him under 35 yards. If he starts getting out 35 to, you know, heck, 35 to 49, I'll underjudge him. How many times I've shot 8s on him, shooting him for 48 and, hit an eighth of an inch under a 12 or 49 would have just pounded the middle out of it.
Right. So with your your mental game, do you do anything like unique to yourself, or just do you have any like ideas for what you do to improve your mental game?
And for mental game, confidence is key, you know, in your mental game. Believing in yourself is probably, to me, one of the most important parts of your mental game. You've got to believe that you can compete. You've got to believe that you can beat everybody on that range. If you don't believe that, then you might not find as much success. That was a turning point for me in about 2009. I'd been shooting pro for a few years, had a little bit of success, but nothing that really stood out. Make a shoot off here and there. And in 2009, I really started pounding it in my head. I'm as good as anybody on this range. I can beat anybody on this range. And then once I started believing that and believing in myself, I started seeing more success. Started being at the top more. I was competing, against Levi Morgan, beating Levi, beating Dan, hanging with those guys at tournaments, 2 of the best that, played the unknown 3D game. And, you know, probably before that, I think I had some doubt that, might not be able to hang with these guys. And once I changed my mindset, hey, I can beat all these guys. I'm as good as they are. I'm as talented as they are, and things turned around. So you got to believe in yourself, number one, um, and have that confidence to step out there and step on the line, and whether it's indoors or outdoors, and believe that you can beat literally anybody in that building or on that 3D range.
Yeah, that's huge. Is there anything else you'd like
Yeah.
to add to your mental game?
On the middle game of it, I think just get used to being uncomfortable. That's the biggest thing. You're going to find yourself in pressure situations as you're shooting competitive archery, and just get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's, man, I don't know. Being in a shoot off is a good thing. So really, why should you be nervous? That's one thing I tell myself a lot. Shouldn't be any anxiety once you get into a shoot off or nerves or pressure. That's success. You've made it. You're there. It's a good thing that you're there. So why are you nervous about it? You shouldn't be nervous about positive things. So that's one thing that I tell myself a lot, to help keep the nerves at bay, and to keep my mindset good when it counts.
Wow, that's perfect, man. I feel like a lot of people are going to benefit from that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I hope so, man. There's so many different takes on mental games and what you can do. Just
yeah,
biggest thing
confidence
though
is
is
key.
confidence is key.
Yeah. So what were we saying?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I don't have anything. But anyway, we'll go to our next question. So with providing a good shop experience, I know that you are partnered with the bow shop. So how do you balance providing a good experience to your customers that come into the shop, as well as balancing your professional career?
I think those two kind of go hand in hand. As a successful, professional shooter, people when they come in to see you at the store, I feel like they already know that. I guess I'm trying to think exactly how to say this. They know that you are a knowledgeable person, that you can help them out, and assist them with what they have going on. So I try to utilize what I've learned over the years shooting professionally, and being around some of the best techs, the best shooters, just everything that I've learned. And I try to make that accessible to every customer that comes in, to the store. Um, I feel like I've got a lot of knowledge about tuning setups, hunting setups, just all of that. And you just want to kind of be an open book to your customers, provide all that to them. I don't keep any tricks or secrets to myself. I'll share it with them and try to help them out, help them become better archers. So I try to utilize that for the customer service end of it. Biggest thing for shops, you're getting customers coming into the store, and you're busy. Just acknowledge that the customer is there. Just hey man, how's it going? We'll be with you in just a minute. That goes a long way with customers. If nobody speaks up and speaks to that customer, they may not feel welcome in your shop. So that's one thing. Just
Yeah,
as an employee of a shop, make sure you're acknowledging the customers. Most of them will
that's
be
huge.
understanding if you're really busy at that point in time. So just make sure you
Absolutely.
acknowledge the customers, and be as friendly as you can, and then just help them out, hear their needs, see what they need. It may just be strings and cables. Bows may need to be timed. It may need to be tuned. There's a lot of different things and scenarios that shop faces, a shop employee faces or a bow tech faces.
Yeah, for sure. I have been in that situation. I've walked in a few shops before, and especially shops that have a lot of different departments. They're like really big shops, like they're
Yeah.
an outfitter, sporting goods store. You'll find that um, it might be challenging to acknowledge a customer, but
Yeah.
definitely trying to build that relationship. As soon as
Yeah.
someone walks in, like I feel like as soon as someone walks in, that person needs to be acknowledged, and
Yeah. You
like
need to acknowledge
that's
them.
key.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And during our busy season, we've got an older gentleman. He's worked at a sporting goods store out in Oklahoma City. He's been around archery his whole life, and he's kind of a retired guy. That's mainly we bring him in just for that, just so on busy
literally.
days he
Yeah,
can work the sales floor. He can go through and talk to the customers, acknowledge them, and see if there's anything that he can help them with. and help them out until one of the techs can step in, to help out and take over. And that goes a long ways with people.
Yeah, I agree. We actually Holmes Sporting Goods is a shop that's in my hometown, and we have a couple a couple older guys that do that. We have the owner, of course. He's always sitting in a rocking chair, like as soon as you walk in. And then there's another guy that's he's mostly like a gun tech, and he just comes
Yeah,
in and helps out. But yeah, so that's awesome, man. Um,
yeah.
as far as your bow setup and how you get your bow like out of the box and then tuned and then pounding and ready to start scoring, what's your process that you go through to do that?
And that could be a lengthy process,
Very.
just depending on how the bow reacts and sets up. You kind of know what it is. I mean, nothing really special. Shoot for gas bow strings. So the first thing I do when I get one in, I change out the strings and cables, from the factory strings, put a set of gas on there. And then I will get just put a loop on it, put it in the drawboard, get it timed, kind of see where the draw length is measuring out at. Kind of go ahead and adjust all that and get that ready to start with. Then I will take it, put it in the bow vise, and kind of set my knocking point where I'd like my arrow to kind of run through the burger hole and set that height, obviously of what arrow I'm going to be running as well. Get that set the center shot. On my bows with my Hoyts, I always start out at 13/16 with tuning for them. And then after I get my knocking point set, my serving balls tied in, I will put a new D loop on it. I use a mic to make sure that I get the exact D loop that I'm looking for. I think I run like a 1.15 loop, I think, on everything that I shoot, um, especially on the Strato setup. And after that, I'll set the side up, level the sight, get it going first, second, third axis, and then I'll put stabilizers on. I kind of after shooting for so many years, I know about what I'm looking for overall mass weight on a bow, and kind of know what I'm looking for stabilizer wise as far as the weights on it goes. So I'll have a rough starting point, normally around 8 ounces on the front of a 30-inch bar, and then 16 to 20 ounces on the back of a 12-inch back bar. And that's where I start out at on the setup. Obviously, that can change day to day, and it can also change, once you get outside and get to shooting that bow. But that's kind of my initial setup there. Once I get that done, I'll go out and start shooting it outside and see if I need to fine tune the draw length any. I might, depending on the bow, I'll be anywhere from 29 and a half to 29 and 5/8 on draw length just for comfort and overall fit. If it's a 3D bow, I will finalize my peep height. I normally do that at 45 yards. Set it where I'm really comfortable at 45. Obviously at 20, it'll feel a little bit low, but it's really comfortable from what for our average yardage is what we shoot on a 3D circuit. So I set everything at 45 there. Um, you know, I'll paper tune and then I torque tune as well. I normally do that after I get my pea pot set and get everything, the stabilizers positioned where I want them, where the bow is aiming good, and I'll go back and kind of paper tune and then fine tune the torque tune after that as well.
Yeah, so that's the
Yeah,
lengthy
this may
process.
go.
So
Yeah, and this may go over the course of a couple of days too. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's something I set up and I'm 100% ready to go in an hour, hour and a half on a target setup. Like I said, it'll normally go a couple of days working on it and fine tuning it.
yeah,
Torque
I can
tuning can
relate to
be a
that.
little bit time consuming.
Yeah,
And,
100%.
I've experimented a lot over the years with different stabilizer setups, just trying heavy weight out front. You know, that's never worked for me. I just, maybe it's because I started off years ago shooting a lot setup and a lot, front weight and just never have shot a real heavy setup. And I don't know, for me, 8 ounces on the front of a 30-inch bar seems to be about perfect. I think I saw you were playing in the setup. You had a 17 ounces on the front, maybe
Yeah, that's
something,
that's a
something
lot
like
for
that.
me, by the way. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would attest to like if I go back and look at my average weight up front on a 30-inch bar, over my entire archery career, 7 to 9 ounces. Eight's definitely
Yeah,
been a favorite for me as well. I've shot
yeah.
weights most of my career, but yeah, I can attest to that. So
What are what are you finding that you're seeing with heavier weight out front?
you've got to have holding weight to hold that weight
Yeah,
up, and you've got to
yeah,
pull, got to have your shoulders and your back like in a really good position. And
yeah,
you like for me, you just really got to understand like how like your back really works and how to stay in it, because that's if you are running a lot of holding weight, it's very easy to creep if you're not careful on some
yeah.
shots.
That's
So
something, over the years, and there's been very few tournaments that I've ever shot with probably less than I'd say at least 18 pounds holding weight. I've always shot 18 to say 21 pounds holding weight.
yeah,
And that's what I've always shot the best. I think when I was shooting the Matthews there, one year in Foley, I shot 80% mods. I was holding about 14 pounds, made the shoot off there with it. And it aimed really good, but I don't know. I like a bow with more holding weight. And I feel like it does tighten up my aim. And to me, it's more forgiving.
yeah. I would like to tap into that. With my experience on holding weight, um, at the Classic, I shot a 75% position on the Stratus, and I had probably 15 pounds of holding weight, something like that. And like out of the gate on the first day, I was shooting really well, but on some shots, I would relax too much or I'd be too tight. And it's like my pin would do this. It just float up and down.
Yeah.
I couldn't really control it. And when you have holding weights,
Yeah.
like it just kind of buzzes
Yeah.
around what you're
To me,
aiming
it
at.
covers the middle a lot better.
Oh, yeah. So,
Doesn't float around as much.
yeah, it's just like that with no
Yeah.
holding weight. But so, the forgiveness factor, what do you think, about the forgiveness factor with holding weight?
And for me, it's way more forgiving with holding weight. I feel like I get less lefts and rights. I feel like my shot overall just feels so much smoother and so much better executed with more holding weight versus light holding weight. Um, I pull pretty hard on my release handle through the shot, through the execution. I think it's maybe one reason I like the holding weight being higher. There's a lot of people like I want to say Jacob Marlowe shoots 11, 12 pounds, something like that. But he just kind of sits still on the shot and just relaxes his hand till it goes off. I mean, he's had a ton of success with it and shoots it great, but just shows you how people are so much different. I'm shooting 20 pounds and pulling on the handle pretty hard, and he's shooting 11, 12 pounds. Just
Yeah,
sits real
Jacob
still and
Marlowe.
relaxes till it goes off.
Yeah, his hand is like extremely
Yeah,
relaxed, but I mean he's
yeah,
one heck of a shot. So
yeah. Just holds it dead still.
yeah. So um when you're getting a like your sight tape dialed in, what's your process with that?
So I would I use Archer's Advantage to get my sight tapes. Um, so I'll take all the measurements there, your peep to scope, your arrow to, peep at full draw, enter in all the specifics of your arrow, your bow specs, all of that. And then I'll, shoot through the chronograph. I use a pro chrono since that's what ASA uses. So I know I'm really close on the speed that their chronograph will read. Enter all that in and, it generates a few different sight tapes. And I use a laser engraved sight tape on about everything. So I'll, kind of find the one that matches up, with those tapes and put it on, and then I'll shoot it in as well, from 20, say all the way back to about 60 yards. I really don't ever shoot past 60 because nothing that I'm competing in are we shooting, really over 51, 52 yards. Double check it and see if that laser engraved tape matches up, by shooting the marks in. If it doesn't, I'll get the Gunstar sight tapes, and I think they've got one for like every foot per second. And then, I'll find one, to stick it on there, and then same thing, just shoot it in until I get them where, I'm hitting the middle from 20 all the way back to 60.
Awesome, man. Yeah, those gun start tapes, especially for people that have like a really slow setup, like younger
Yeah,
people or just, like women or people with a really short draw length, like that helps. You can get side tapes that are like this
yeah,
long.
yeah. No, absolutely. Makes a big difference.
For sure. So, is there any advice that you would have for someone that's looking to possibly shoot professionally one day in archery?
Any advice? Be patient with archery as you know you're moving kind of through your career, moving through the ranks. Um, I would say win your way out, win your way up, through the ranks, through your divisions, and enjoy it. That way, you're learning, how to win, learning how to handle different situations. A couple years ago, a few years ago, I probably thought a little bit different on that. I jumped from young adult into semi-pro, and then was in semi-pro for a couple of years until I was able to shoot a full circuit, and then moved into pro. I think I missed out on some stuff by doing that. I missed out on winning some tournaments, winning some titles, learning some situations to be in, and I think that experience could have benefited me more moving into being a professional. Um, you know, that ASA, obviously, if you go out and you shoot a big score on day one, they post scores and stuff. So, you've got the lead, maybe. You got to sleep, get a good night's sleep, knowing you had the lead for a tournament and be able to go out and perform next day and handle it. So, I think just experiences like that you can learn from by taking your time and enjoying the process to move through the different divisions, to eventually become a professional.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I remember in my shoes, I asked someone a similar question like that, and I had never shot ASA before. Like the national circuit just shot like state level stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, the same thing. Just start around like your entry level classes and just work your way up.
Yeah.
So
Some of that could depend on situation and, maybe your age. Cause, if we got a guy that's say around 30 years old, he's wanting to become a pro shooter, he probably ought to try to move a little faster on that pace and as far as trying to achieve that goal.
yes,
I'd start semi-pro, or if he could afford it, man, he can handle the hits and the struggles that might come with jumping into pro. Try it out. I'd probably say start in semi-pro or K50, and shoot there, and then try to move up, into the pro division within the next couple of years. If you're a younger guy coming, say, out a young adult, work up through the ranks, and learn that process because it'll
that's
benefit you in
huge.
the long run.
Yeah, I like that because some people, like, what's your opinion of how long a pro career should be as far as like age ranges?
Well, I've I just recently turned 41 this year, and I've had people kind of make comments to me about oh man, you're 40, your career's probably about over. Then you look at say Joseph Goza this past year, he won a tournament, and I think he's 43, 44. He's a couple years older than me. You look at the career that Gillingham has had, and the success he had, even through men's pro, even up into his upper 40s before he turned senior. Um, I don't know if there's a time frame that you can really put on it being a professional archer. Obviously, for say somebody my age, I would say 45 is probably a number that age wise that you can look at. You may decline a little bit just battling eyesight for one. That's one thing I haven't experienced it yet, but I'm sure that's coming at some point. So you're going to have to learn how to adapt your setups and adapt maybe to the changing situations as you get a little bit older, and you got to keep your shoulders healthy. So, for me, I think I have found the most success in my career in my late 30s into my early 40s here, versus whenever I was in my early 20s or mid 20s trying to compete. Of course, I'm a little bit more settled in life, I would say, as a whole, especially the last 10 years. Um, so I don't know. For a guy like me, I'd say if your shoulders are healthy and you can still see, you shoot all the way till you're a senior.
Yeah, that has something to do with it. So with your shoulder health, is there anything that you would like advise for people, like just keeping them healthy?
Yeah, keep or exercise your shoulders. You're a younger guy coming up, exercise your shoulders. Don't pull a high poundage. Don't get into shooting a lot of heavy weight. That's one thing that I, did early on. Shooting 70 pounds on about everything. I've come off at the last few years. Go outside, I shoot about 65 pounds. You hurt your shoulder, your career can be over. I mean, you know that you get a rotator cuff tear, and you may not be able to, pull a bow anymore. So very important to take care of your shoulders. I've had to go see a massage therapist over the years. I've had to get some injections in my shoulders, from shooting. And of course, I've been shooting a lot of arrows since I was a teenager. So just wear and tear, but stay off high poundage. If you 60 pounds, do about anything you want it to do, competition wise. So 65 maybe for 3D, 60 pounds, indoors or less, and try not to ever go over that.
Wow, that's good advice. So,
Yeah, it. I've seen a lot of older guys, get up in their 40s and 50s, shoulders start really bothering them.
yeah, 100%.
And
So,
something else to think about too is draw length. And draw length can, hurt somebody's shoulder, especially if somebody shoot too short. I felt like I shot too short a draw length probably for a, a good part of my career. I just, kind of always shot around 28 and a half inches, and I kind of shot it real open across my body. So my form was, it looked okay, but, essentially I was running too short, and that led to, a left shoulder injury. Wound up having to get some injections in that shoulder. Probably to date, that's still the one shoulder that would give me some trouble if I have any trouble with my shoulder. I think it was in 2018. Me and Jack Wallace, we were shooting. And I got to ask him about his draw length. And I think he's shooting right at 30 inches. Man, he's a couple inches shorter than I am. So I was like, man, if he's shooting that draw length, what am I doing shooting this? That summer, I let out, I think from the second leg of the IBO to the third leg of the IBO, I let my draw length out an inch and an eighth. And once I got to an inch and an eighth, I think I got back to back seconds. I got second at the third leg of the IBO, and I got second at the ASA Classic. And from that point on, man, my shooting, was probably got more consistent as a whole, and the shoulder issues went away. So,
wow,
yeah, it was a huge change to make, but it was definitely for the better.
that's huge. So, if you change your draw length like a whole inch and an eighth like that, um, like how do you make sure that you're really comfortable with that?
So I bought Donnie Thacker had the sweet spot. I think he just launched it maybe that year. So I bought that and I put it on the bow, and I kept letting my draw length out to where I held the most consistent according to that sweet spot gauge. And what I was doing a lot with the shorter draw length was losing tension during the shot, and you actually almost felt like you were pulling hard, nothing was happening, but I was actually leaking tension through the shot, and tension I guess was loading up in the handle. Felt like I was pulling, but I wasn't. So that sweet spot really told off on how much tension I was losing while I was aiming. And the longer I went in draw length, the more consistent that got. And when I got to an inch and an eighth, like I was really consistent and maintaining the same tension throughout the whole entire shot. When I got past an inch and an eighth, you know, I got to where I was kind of losing tension again and just inconsistent. Might hold it pretty consistent for 2 or 3 shots, and I would lose tension again. But that inch and an eighth mark, according to that sweet spot, for me was like spot on where I needed to be with that setup. That particular year.
I gotcha. So, did you have to like change your hips or like your stance any with that?
Yeah, I did. Kind of rotate my hips a little bit and my shoulders to get a little more square. Obviously, I'm not shooting as across my body as I once was. But it didn't take long. At first, it's like, man, I feel like I'm stretched way out. But after shooting it and seeing the success that I had with it, it's just something that I got used to. And now And if I grab a bow that's 28.5 inch draw length now and pull it back, I'm like, how did I ever do that? Like,
Right. It's
I
insane.
have no idea how I did that.
I feel that. Yeah, I used to shoot. I've shot too long and too short, and if I go like anywhere that's not where I'm currently shooting, it just feels really weird. But yeah, so
Yep.
that's really good advice for people. Especially if you feel like your shoulders are kind of like crammed a little bit,
Yep.
or you're starting to feel a lot of like um pain there. Just try lengthening your draw length out and just keep
Yep.
them nice and low.
Yep. And, all these bows now, they have 1/4 inch adjustments on them. So let it out a
Yeah,
quarter at a time, until you feel the most comfortable.
for sure. So, Chris, where can people follow you for more content from you?
Instagram, I think handle is chacker16. You can follow me on there. And then Facebook page, I have athlete page, Chris Hacker on there. Get on there, follow that. I'm maxed out on friends on my regular Facebook page, so can't accept any more requests. But working on Instagram there, and then Facebook, and I do have a TikTok. Don't do much on there. Probably need to get involved more on that. And possibly going to kick out some stuff on YouTube. Just haven't got everything finalized on that as of now, but that's in the plans to get stuff going where I can do some more videos. Maybe when I'm doing a bow build or a setup, and show my processes and share with people, because there's so many different ways to do things, and everybody seems to do things a little different. But if I can start sharing that knowledge that I have with more people and help them out, I'd love to do it. So that's something we're working on.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, like one thing that like threw me off earlier was like use a micrometer for your D-loop.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like an actual like the C-shaped
yeah.
thing with the dial.
It's a, you got a dial, and the clamp. You can adjust it and measure.
So
Yeah,
like
put
is
it
it
on
a
your.
dig you're not talking about a
It's digital.
caliper. Okay, okay.
Well, yeah, I call it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm like in
Same
that
thing you
group
use to
of
set your
people.
center shot.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm sure the guys that are listening to this that are like machinists, they're like, that's a dial caliper, not a micrometer, because they're like two completely different things.
Oh,
Anyway,
I call it a mic.
I'm like, yeah, same thing, but
Yeah,
I feel you on that. So, but all
yeah,
right, it was a pleasure, and
yeah.
I definitely would like to have you on in the future. And
Oh,
yeah, if
absolutely.
you want to get some YouTube content out, do it. The world needs to see what you do, and I'm sure I would watch it myself. I'd be like, "What's Chris doing? What's his little secrets?" You know. So
Yeah. I remember we
yeah,
talked about knock fit, earlier in the year,
yeah,
at a tournament. We got to discussing that, and I think
you
from
were
what I
like
had found
really thin.
helped you out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the under knot. Yeah. I did
Yeah.
run it. I haven't tied any center ties on my setup yet. So but yeah, I definitely need to do some testing myself too. So
Yeah.
but yeah.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
okay.
That's a good part of archery. Always testing.
Yeah, it's always fun. But do you have any other comments for the audience?
I mean, anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always here to help. You'll send me a message on Facebook, send me a message on Instagram. I'll be glad to help you out, especially if you're struggling with anything. Feel free to ask.
Awesome. This is one of the best guys in the sport for sure. He's so insightful and helpful. He's helped me out personally, and really thankful for you, Chris.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No problem, man.